hosts Jonathan Curry and Sterling Mitchell take a deep dive and diagnose the current status on individual NBA teams. Caution, takes from here on will be hot, focused on championships and based on a gym rat mentality. If you are not about that shit, go turn on ESPN.
Dip I dip you dip, if I dip you dip I dip. Dip I dip you dip, if I dip you dip I dip. Dip I dip you dip, if I dip you dip I dip.
Don't let me into my zone. Don't let me into my zone. Don't let me into my zone. You haters leave me out.
Yo, what's good, people? We back. It's the NBA Clinic. I am your host, Jonathan Curry, with, of course, the main legend himself, OG Sterling Mitchell.
What's good?
And we back here to give y'all the Detroit Pistons. Now, I know for our loyal fans, it's going to feel like we kind of fell off of a cliff, considering we just dropped the Clippers podcast a couple of days ago. If you haven't seen that, go ahead and check that out. That was great. Had a great guest on there, my man, Vcom Ashwood. But we're going from a very optimistic situation to straight pessimism. You feel me?
Yeah, this is rough. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for any Pistons fans out there. Y'all used to have one of the best franchises in the league, and now you got to deal with this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Pistons in the 2000s was like popping. Changed the way I saw basketball when the Pistons won in 04. Legendary basketball moment.
They was popping in the 90s too.
No, you're right. Dang, they really had decades of greatness.
It all happened with like a change of culture. They used to be a really hard-nosed, defensive-minded team, and I don't see that anymore.
I think they attempted to get that magic back, but they failed very, very miserably. And the reason why I say that is because hiring Stan Van Gundy, like, defense was such a hard-hitting point for that Orlando Magic team back when they had, like, Dwight Howard, JJ Redick, like, Hedo Turkoglu, all that stuff. And Ryan Anderson. Shouts out Ryan Anderson. He be doing work. Now, they're kind of trash because their focus was supposed to be defense, but they're not really good at defense. So
they definitely don't have the pieces to
yeah,
be a defensive-minded team.
And that's crazy to say because I'm looking at, the draft picks and all of like the highlights of what they were back in the day. You definitely tell that this team was supposed to be built towards being good at defense, and like they're not good at that. Then what's their other skills supposed to be? There's no player that jumps off that's like really good offensively in some way or form. If you're not killing it on the defensive end, you got to be killing it on the offensive end, and this team is not killing it on either.
I really only see like 2 starters on this team, like that could be starting on any team.
For real. The thing is, they gave up 3 starters that could be starting on any other team. I just don't understand why. I'm just shocked. Let's just jump right into there because we kind of highlighted, the Pistons back from the mid-2000s, early 90s. We don't need to get into 2015 like Pistons. I don't know if anybody's trying to hear that. So we're just going to jump right into that trade that shook up the league for like 3 days. Probably the only press coverage that the Detroit Pistons ever got this season. The trade to get Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin, Willie Reed, and Bryce Johnson being sent to Detroit in exchange for Avery Bradley, Tobias Harris, my man Boban, a 2018 first-round draft pick, and a 2019 second-round draft pick. Are you kidding me? Pistons got robbed.
They really did. That was the steal.
I don't know what they were thinking with this. I know they moved into a new stadium. It's supposed to be downtown, so they're really just trying to focus on selling seats to make sure that they get their money back for like building the new stadium and all that. But this was just not the move to make. And I think, once again, I gotta emphasize this because we always preach this on this podcast. Never make a coach the GM for your organization. Just don't do it. Like, it literally makes no sense. There's a reason why there's a separation of powers between the coach and the GM. And time again, we've seen it not work out. Doc Rivers, great example of that. Stan Van Gundy, currently a great example of that.
Yeah, I believe you should have a mix between the coach and the GM to where you have 2 people coming together to make the best decision possible.
It's just too much work to do both at the same time. Like, it's too hard of a job.
It's always better when you have more than one person making decisions. You could take bias out of it.
Definitely. It's kind of like the argument that authoritarian governments are worse than having true democracies because when one person, like, it's high risk, high reward. So if that person even slips up, the repercussions is like the whole government gets fucked up. Whereas a democracy, it's like as long as the bottom line is good, you always consistently improve. So I feel like that's the same thing for basketball teams. It's a great example why sports is a microcosm for everyday life.
I believe that is certainly apparent in the NBA, especially with the point you just brought up. When the team has the same person be the coach and and the GM, it never seems to work out. We see that time and time again. Whereas, like, we see an organization like the Warriors, which has a conglomerate of people making decisions and developing players, and look how they're doing.
Sterling, that's a great example that you brought up, the comparison to the Warriors, because if you look at the Warriors, they hire the most assistant coaches compared to any other team in the league. They have Bruce Frazier, that amazing shooting coach that I was telling everybody about on the Suns podcast. They have Mike Brown for an assistant coach just for one end. They have two other great assistant coaches as well. They really try to invest as many resources as they can into what they have, but not only do they do that, they make sure that they delineate responsibility wherever they see fit, and they do a great job of that in the GM front. They do a great job of that in the coaching front. And even in terms of advisors to the owner, they do a great job advising Joe Lacob. Jerry West used to be an advisor for the Warriors.
And that's definitely a great advisor to have.
Oh, for sure. Oh, my God. But yeah, moving off of Jerry West, like I haven't fucking talked about him enough. We could just jump in the Blake Griffin payroll. At the age of 29, he's getting paid a guaranteed amount of $132 million over the next 4 years. So he's getting paid $29.5 million this year, $31 million the next year, $34 the year after that, $36 in 2021, and then has a player option for damn near $39. It's $38.9 million for his 2021-22 contract.
Yeah, this trade just keeps getting worse and worse in my mind. I don't see this man getting too much better.
Yeah, I think
he's just going to keep increasing that payroll each year.
His game is based off of a lot of athleticism, although he has improved in a lot of ways to become a more well-rounded basketball player. It's just, he's going to get worse over time. I don't think, this might be a little bit rough to say because obviously Blake Griffin wants to and is willing to, anything's possible because he's just such a great talent to begin with. If he loses his athleticism, I could see this contract getting just acceleratingly worse over time. Because imagine in, let's say for 2021, he will be 32 years old. Do you think 32-year-old Blake Griffin's going to be better than current Blake Griffin?
Not at all.
Exactly. I feel the same way. So it's just rough. He has the player option for the $38 million. I mean, he's going to be 33 then. How is he not going to want to take that money?
Exactly. He'll be getting paid more at 33 than LeBron's getting paid. I'm pretty sure that's more than like anybody in the league right now is getting paid.
That's wrong.
And by the time he's 33, that's how much he'll be getting paid.
That is
that's
just
ridiculous.
Wrong. That's wrong. It's like morally wrong. I can't believe that's happening. Jesus. All right, but let's talk about Blake Griffin, the basketball player. I know we've been rough on this man because of his contract, but he's still a really good basketball player. He earned his all-star appearances, and he can still make a huge impact on any basketball team that he's at. He's legitimately an all-around talent now. I have to give him that. He's transformed his offensive game. Although he hasn't made as much progress on shooting as I would have liked to see him, he's definitely done a great job improving his jump shot, being able to pass. He's always been a good screener, a good pick and roller, amazing rebounder, and injuries have just been the main thing that I feel like that's been holding him back from being able to like reach his true greatness.
Yeah, I agree with that. The man puts up solid numbers every single year since he's been in the league. He's always averaged around 20 points. So he's always going to make an impact on the team, like you said. Also, like you say, he's a very solid rebounder too, and he hustles. He'll get you 20. He's a solid free throw shooter. Like you said, I'd like to see him be able to shoot the basketball a little bit better at this point in his career, especially being 29. He's going to need to develop a better jump shot as his athleticism declines. But overall, the man is still definitely a top 5 power forward in the league.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
Easily.
I would have to agree for that for this season. But next year, I don't know, man. Power forwards have been getting really, really good. I think that's either the most or the second most important position of basketball right now. And it's just crazy. With like Giannis, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Kevin Durant. There's so much more young talent coming in the power forward position. I could see Blake Griffin's value just like depreciating, which sucks because he's so good at basketball. But like this year's draft is a great example of how many good power forwards are about to come into the league. And I feel like that's going to be the same case next year as well.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying if he's able to develop a jump shot, and while he has these last few years of his athleticism, as long as he stay healthy and not get injured, forward, he should still be near some of the elite power forwards. I do think, like you said, there's a bunch of young talent that will end up surpassing him pretty soon, especially because of their ability of coming into the league, being able to shoot and not having to develop that. They're just a step ahead of him, of where he was. And yeah, it will depreciate his value, but if he's able to still get you 20 a night, I still think there'll still be a place in the league for him for a while.
Definitely. I think somebody is going to be able to take on that contract. It just sucks because I don't think it'll be a good basketball team. Like, I think because of his contract, Blake Griffin is cursed for the next 5 years to just not be on a good basketball team. Financially, it makes no sense having Blake Griffin on your team and then also being a contending basketball team. Like, that's just never going to happen.
But yeah, the financials of the deal that they gave him was just crazy.
Also, I would like to highlight that I don't feel like Stan Van Gundy's using him well. I don't know, Sterling, if you watched that many Pistons games with Blake Griffin on the court. Now that we've reached the end of the season, I've been able to see a healthy amount of him being played, and Stan Van Gundy's just not utilizing him right. Just can't decide if he wants him to be like a point forward sometimes, but then most of the times he forces him to be down low like Andre Drummond. Like, it just feels like Stan Van Gundy's still living in this like Orlando Magic bubble because he was able to get to one finals, and it feels like both of the bigs that he has, he's making them play like Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum back when they were on that Lakers championship team, and it's just like basketball isn't played like that anymore, and I feel bad for Blake. I really do. Like, I think that's the main highlight of this whole podcast is like literally months ago he was fucking Kendall Jenner in LA, living in a mansion, living his fucking best life in Los Angeles, and then had to move to Detroit, lost his girl. Bro, Blake, I feel
that is pretty heartbreaking. I'm sorry.
But I heard Detroit's on the come up though. You know what I mean? Like, for as much negativity.
It is.
I heard Detroit's coming up, man. That's what people be telling me these days. Property values going up. Gentrification low-key happening, but if it was going to happen anywhere, I'm glad that it's happening in Detroit. I want to see Michigan come up, bro. I miss the days when it's crazy. I feel like the Pistons' history is a direct correlation to Detroit's history. Like, when Detroit's popping, the Pistons were good. And when Detroit's not popping, the Pistons are bad. And vice versa. Like, who knows? I think there's a high correlation there.
Now that you think about it, I have to agree with that statement completely.
But damn, moving on from that, we're going to move into Andre Drummond, one of the best rebounders in the league.
Honestly, I have no problems with this contract. The man's young, only 24 years old, getting paid $23.7 million this year, $25.4 next year, $27 in the 2019-20 season, and then $28.7 in the 2021 season.
I actually would have to agree with you. I think that player option is fucking ridiculous, but outside of that, I think this contract is kind of worth it. Ideally speaking, if I was the GM giving him this, I wouldn't have pushed it over $23 million per year. But he's 24 years old, and honestly, he's improved in terms of the rest of his game very, very well this season. His free throw percentages was up. He's been actually making more assists and passes than I've seen him make from before. It just seems like everything improved for him this season, and it's what you want to see from a basketball player. I think he has the potential to be one of the best centers in this league. On the Clippers podcast, me and my guest Nikon talked about how good Steven Adams and DeAndre Jordan were just at being a center. Those types of centers, they won't carry you as a organization, but what they will do is establish a championship core, and that if you have a center like that and you put them on a playoff bound team, they're immediately a contender. Like, you need a player like Andre Drummond to win a championship, I believe. Like, he's a championship piece player.
Yeah, he's averaging 15 points, 16 rebounds this season. So he's doing this thing. It's a double-double a night guy, basically guaranteed, especially on this team where they don't really have many options. So he has to be one of the main ones. I'm big up on his game. I've had him on fantasy teams in the past. I always could rely on him to give me rebounds. He can go off sometimes and even get you over 20 rebounds, which is always nice.
Honestly, it sucks because he's on the Pistons. I would love to see Andre Drummond be on a team like the Miami Heat or one of these Eastern Conference playoff teams doing something meaningful where he doesn't have to be the star player. Rather, he just has to fill his role on the team. And I feel like through that freedom that you give him, he just becomes great. He deserves to play with a good point guard. He deserves to play with good guards.
Yeah, it's really just sad. He has so much potential. Just got stuck with this trash situation.
Yeah, so after this, You know, I wish I could say it gets much brighter. Really doesn't. You got Reggie Jackson coming in, age of 27, starting point guard for this team. Forced his way out of Oklahoma City being the backup point guard because he thought he was better than Russell Westbrook. Not a good look. He's got 3 years left on his contract with a guaranteed amount of $51 million. He's getting paid $16 million this year, $17 million the next year, and then $18 million in 2019-2020.
Yeah, I don't know why he left. He had a great situation in OKC.
I think he let the team winning get to his head because that's the season that Kevin Durant won his MVP, and they won on that huge tear without Russell Westbrook. I think he thought that he was the person doing most of that work, where it was like, bruh, an MVP was on your team. Chill.
I mean, it's the NBA. Players have egos. You want to be the best. I mean, I can't blame you for having that attitude of you wanting that stardom and wanting to be the best that you can be, and knowing that if I got to come off the bench, I'm only going to get so many opportunities. So I admire his confidence and the way he's thinking. But as far as an outsider looking in, he just doesn't have the talent to be point guard in this league, especially these days with the amount of talent that's at that position.
Definitely. Sterling, I think you made a good point that I didn't even think about, which kind of makes me, be less harsh on Reggie Jackson in that I totally relate to his confidence, like as a basketball player. Like even when you're on the court, if you're not feeling it like that, like there's going to be somebody on the basketball court who's just always pushing himself to be the best because deep down, like he's convinced himself that he's the best. I can relate to that, I really can. I feel for this. And he took a risk on himself. Like he said, I feel like I did so well in this stretch, I can prove myself to be a starting point guard in this league, which was a risk that did not pay off. But I'm glad that, he fulfilled his life's journey. Imagine what if he never got that chance, how he would have felt emotionally. So from like a mental standpoint, like I'm glad Reggie Jackson made that decision to get out of OKC, but it definitely was not the best move for his career. And to give Reggie Jackson some praise too, I'd say he's an above average finish at the rim guard in the league.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's a great finisher.
Speaking of his offensive game, he is averaging 14.7 points a game this season. That's about it. His field goal percentage, 43%. He's a below average shooter, I would for sure say. 3-point percentage is only at 31% right now. And, the way that the league's going, that's just not going to be able to cut it. I think that was the one thing that stopped Reggie Jackson from being the great player he saw himself as, which was his ability to shoot the basketball. Albeit he does not play in an offense that really fosters a shooting environment, I say. Like, I don't think a lot of the players get clean looks at the basket. I don't think they work on developing jump shots over there right now. It could be other factors outside of his own will that's stopping him from being a great shooter, but currently that's just not the case. His shooting is the thing that's holding him back.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd say right now his offense is predicated on the pick and roll of Andre Drummond.
Definitely. And Andre Drummond, when he's rolling, you should be feasting off of that as a point guard. There's a lot of really good point guards in the league that don't have a big to play with like Andre Drummond.
So moving on, next, let's go into this John Lure contract.
Oh my gosh. It's tough to say this is the worst one, but this is just the one that stands out the most. I'll be honest, I have not seen this man's career. I claim to say that I watch a lot of basketball. I have to be honest with myself and the audience. This guy, John Lure, I just don't understand how he got paid this much. I don't understand what his game is necessarily about fully. I've seen him on the court, but I've never really paid attention to him when the Pistons play. And I guess that's partially my fault, but it's also because this dude is fucking John Lure, who's still probably a baller. He could cross me up easily. I'd love to play, just see him play basketball, but only in a 24-hour fitness type of setting.
Yeah, I only know him because I had him on a fantasy team. That's just because it's one of those dudes where you need some players and you just try to find somebody at the end that's not just trash. Yeah, he came from the Suns. This is his second year being a part of the Pistons. Before the Suns, he was on the Grizzlies. So he's been on trash teams his entire career. Probably one of the reasons you haven't heard of him.
Yeah, it's never a good sign if you're not putting up good numbers and you've only been on bad basketball teams. It's just not a good look for you as a basketball player if that happens.
You got to shout out to his agent.
Oh, for
getting
sure.
man paid $10 million.
For sure, man. We gotta start doing some research on these agents, bro. They be pulling some moves. I swear, every podcast we got one contract. We're like, yo, shouts out this man's agent.
For real.
Next season we'll have y'all on that.
And I will say he also has been injured this whole season. Basically, he's only played in 8 games. So I hope he's injured. And I hope it's not somewhere where he's not getting any playing time, because that would make this contract a lot worse.
It just doesn't look hopeful because out of the 336 career games that he's played, he's only averaged a point more. And his rebounds and assists have been like dead ass the same.
Yeah, especially for a power forward being 6'10", averaging 4 rebounds a game. I'm going to need you to do more. Even for $10 million, I'm going to need at least like 7 rebounds. That'd be nice.
Now that we've done the Clippers podcast and I've seen Lou Williams' contract, it's completely changed my perspective on the way we see these contracts. Frankly, I look at what Lou Williams is getting paid and I look at John Lewis right now and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. The power of management, man.
It really is interesting, these contracts. Some people just aren't getting their worth, and then other people are getting way more than what they are worth.
So moving on from John Lewis, we have former New York Knick Langston Galloway under the Phil Jackson era. I respect him probably because, I watched a lot of minutes of this guy play, especially as a Knick. I respect him. I respect his game. You can tell he tries every single time. He's a high effort guy, but he's just not as good as basketball as his counterparts in the league. I mean, he's just a below average guard. He's a bench player for sure. I mean, he could be working on his craft. You could really tell when he plays basketball, he loves playing the game of basketball. I mean, even when the Knicks were like, he was getting booed at the Madison Square Garden, like, this guy would still try to come out and perform. I feel like, that has to take a toll on you mentally, and basketball is such a mental game. I feel for him, bro. I feel for this man. I think it'd be tough as a basketball player to go from the Knicks, and being on bad Knicks teams and really hearing it from the Garden, to go into this Pistons team. I want somebody to just treat Langston Galloway right. I feel like he just hasn't been in a good basketball situation, so he hasn't been able to develop the way he could be. Because if you get drafted in the NBA, you're a good basketball player. And I think there's so many other aspects outside of what happened in the court that can really shape you.
He did have a pretty good rookie campaign, averaging 11 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists.
Injury could have definitely played a factor in that. Do I feel like looking up that injury right now for the sake of facts? No.
Yeah, definitely. That's not worth it.
Listen, guys, I like reporting on the facts, and if I don't know it, I'm just gonna fucking tell you.
All right. So next, we gotta touch on Ish Smith. This man's getting paid $6 million this year and $6 million next year. The man's been on about 10 different teams in 7 seasons in the league, in 2 teams twice. Personally, a fan. I know you think he's trash, but I don't know. I think it says something about him that he's been able to stay in the league for this long without getting completely cut. That some teams like, well, he's good enough to be on the team at least.
Yeah, he does in one way confirm my belief that if you don't put up numbers that are at least your league average and you're always been on bad basketball teams, then I'm not going to say that makes you a bad basketball player, but there's a high correlation that you're not going to be able to get value out of them. But at the same time, coming off of this Langston Galloway contract, maybe I have been too rough on him. I just really don't know what to think at this point anymore. Like I said from before, it's just going from the Clippers to this is just I'm just shocked. So you know what? He's averaging 10 points right now. Actually, Sterling, you actually have fully convinced me. I was too rough on him. He's a good bench basketball player. I think it's just because I've seen him get so many starting minutes so much, I've probably formed the belief that he's trash. But I mean, trash is harsh. Trash. It would be unfair for me to say Langston Galloway's not trash and to call Ish Smith trash. So I've been too rough on him. He's a bench player, but that's all he fucking is.
I definitely agree with that. The only reason he ever got really started minutes is because he played on the 76ers for 50 games, and they definitely had nobody else back then. And now that I look at his stats and stuff, this will only be his second season being healthy the whole year. So apparently being on the Pistons has helped him because he's been able to average basically 10 points each game and play a full season.
After Ish Smith, we're just going to kind of move ahead to the young talent that they have and transition into talking about the larger theme that we've been trying to hit on, in that Stan Van Gundy was aiming to make this a defensive first team and then to build scoring later. The draft picks that they got were definitely high draft picks that were supposed to be focused on defense. And because for some reason the whole team is not good defensively, they haven't been able to develop as well as they should have been. It's a shame, really. Starting off here with Stanley Johnson at the age of 21 right now. He's getting paid $3 million this year and $3.9 million the next year. Still off of that first round pick.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Stanley Johnson. I do want to see him be able to develop his offensive game in the future. But as far as defense coming into the league, he's definitely one of those players with the athleticism, able to guard like a person like LeBron. I've seen him go up against LeBron and be able to hold his own. Of course, he still kind of got destroyed being a rookie. But there were some plays where you like, you see the talent and you see the reason why he got picked so high. In a few years, he could be that lockdown defender that you need to guard superstars on other teams.
He has all the talent in the world. I feel like it's just being wasted because I was big up on him in college. I think he got drafted at the right position. And like Sterling said from before, you've seen enough, not even flashes. You've seen like certain games where you can really see the development of this kid. But it's just because he's a good talent. Like I just feel like nothing else happening in the organization can take credit for what he does on the court. It's really just him out there. And you want to see a player like that get supported because you want to see players reach their most talent. Right now, it's really just Stanley Johnson out here taking care of what he has to, being a consummate professional.
His development is definitely being slowed down on a team like the Pistons. I'd like to see him be in a better organization that'd be able to develop his skills a lot more. Because one thing he really needs to work on, especially in the league now, is his jump shot. It's gotten a lot better since he entered into the NBA, and he's been able to develop a somewhat consistent mid-range game. But the three-point game still is nowhere where it needs to be. He's only shooting 28%, and he only taking about 3 a game. So basically, he's making 1 sometimes. So I definitely like to see that get better. But with his athleticism, he's definitely able to survive and get points right now. But for him to be able to have longevity and reach the potential that he has, but it's going to take an organization being able to develop him the right way. And I don't know if that will happen on this Pistons team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Hopefully Stanley Johnson gets to see a brighter future in his career because he definitely deserves it. Moving on to the next player, Luke Kennard. Sterling, just take it away.
Boner alert.
Don't worry, girls. There's plenty of Duke to go around.
Oh yeah, this is the Duke boy. So I'm a big fan of Luke Kennard. He has this pick, unlike the last one of Stanley Johnson, is definitely not defensive minded. The man kind of gets exposed on the defensive end, especially in the NBA with all the athleticism. But as far as a very developed offensive game, he has very good footwork for a guard. He's a lefty, so that kind of throws people off with his shot. He's able to create shots in ways with using his footwork that a lot of players can't, as guards especially.
He doesn't know how to get space on his shot.
Yeah, and especially being a lefty, he's a lot more unique. He actually broke LeBron James' scoring record as a high schooler. So, I mean, the man knows how to score, clearly. But as far as his potential in the NBA, unfortunately, as much as I love the man, I think the best he'll ever be able to do is a very decent role player. I never see this man being a star, an all-star, unfortunately. But as far as somebody who'll be able to contribute and somebody you can count on to get you around like 10 to 12 points a game, I definitely think he'll be that person for you. And if he's able to develop a better defensive game, especially being in the NBA, you have to learn that. He'll get a lot better.
Yeah, honestly, here's an interesting take. I think this guy might be one of the most undervalued contracts in the league. Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
Listen, he's only getting paid $2 million this year. And then $3 million the next year. Unfortunately, since the Pistons suck ass, they're probably gonna take his bird rights, sign him again for a team option of $3.8 million the next year, and then $5 million the year after. Here's the reason why I believe that. He is absolutely one of the most undervalued contracts in the league. If you look at the amount of minutes that he plays, and then you look at the efficiency in which this guy shoots the ball, and I would argue one of the most offensively deficient systems in the league, this guy clearly has the talent to score the ball. And last time I checked, people who can score and shoot the basketball get paid right now in the NBA.
Very true.
I think this guy is just good at at shooting the basketball, and that's useful somewhere. Like, if you give Luke Kennard, Kyle Korver's minutes on the Cavs, this boy's doing work.
I agree with that.
Still, you probably didn't see that coming, but the more I've seen this guy play, the more that I've realized what you've told me. I know initially, whenever we've talked about Luke Kennard from before, I definitely was just like, haha, Duke, white boy, I don't give a shit, but I recognize the man's game. He has an above average shooting acumen and deserves to be utilized for that. Like I said, hot take, one of the most undervalued contracts in the league right now, Luke Kennard.
Hey, that's what Duke produces. Good shooting white boys.
I mean, we'll see what happens when Grayson Allen comes into the league.
Oh, that man's a pure shooter. Trust me. Wait till we get to the 76ers podcast. We see who's thriving right now.
Oh, JJ Redick?
Yeah.
The little JJ Redick reference? I fuck with him though, bro. I fuck with... okay, I'm gonna put this
He's
on
a
wax.
cool dude. Grayson
Grayson Allen will never be JJ Redick. JJ Redick is fucking dope.
He'll never be as cool as... Yeah, I mean, JJ Redick's a cool dude. He would just hate it because he was so good. Like, he didn't really do anything. He was just so good.
I don't know about that. But whatever. Actually, no, I will say one last thing about JJ Redick. You could just tell, like, you'd want to be friends with JJ Redick. Like, I bet he seems like one of them alpha-ass males. Like, in college, like, you could tell, like, that dude was, like, slaying... Like, he was the man on campus. JJ Redick, for sure, was the man on campus.
Definitely. Yeah, Grayson Allen definitely is a different personality.
All right, so one last player that we're going to highlight before we move into our feature section is Henry Ellison, getting paid $1.7 million this year, $1.8 million the next year, and then $2.8 million off of a team option, so the team gets to choose if he wants to get paid that or not. And he is 21 years old.
Yeah, this is another rookie. And honestly, well, this is his second year, actually. When I saw the man play in college, I thought he had great potential. He was doing things at Marquette that was really impressing me. He's a 6'11" power forward, 245 pounds, who can step out and is willing to take the three. And so far in the NBA, it hasn't been panning out like you would have liked. He's only shooting 32% this year. But the fact that, like, you got that power forward, that stretch forward that will attempt those is always nice. He shoots 82% from the free throw line, so you're not scared of him getting fouled. It's just he's not producing like you want to see on the offensive end. Only playing 7.7 minutes per game. Only played in 36 games this year. I also haven't seen too much of him in the NBA so far, but I would like to see these numbers a lot better, especially from what I've seen him do in college.
I think Henry Ellison is a systems basketball player. I think that's why he was so good at college. I think he is really talented and he could fit in this league because he likes to shoot the ball. But Stan Van Gundy, the way he coaches is so different than what he was running in Marquette. I just think like he's not. It's just one of those cases where I just don't think he A, fits this team, and then B, like I just don't think he's going to be developed correctly if the Pistons continue to choose to play the way that they're playing right now.
I definitely agree with that. They're definitely more of a driving to the basket, pick and roll type team, and not creating the lanes that Henry Ellison would need to kick it out, to pass it to him, especially if he's not involved in that pick and roll. But I mean, if you have Andre Drummond, I don't see why you want anybody else in the pick and roll. So yeah, I definitely agree with he's a system basketball player. He needs to be in a system more like the Warriors. I know I keep bringing the Warriors up, but they just have an amazing system, to be honest. You need a system where everybody's utilized. Everybody basically has the ability to shoot so you can space out the floor. If he was in a situation like that where there's a lot more space, he'd be able to get the opportunity that he needs to reach his full potential.
If it wasn't for Stan Van Gundy's like heavy intolerance for bigs being able to shoot the ball, like he does not want any of his bigs shooting beyond like 16, 17 feet from the rim at all. And I think that hurts Henry Ellison's overall development. So yeah, that's the last player. I think we're just going to jump right into the future section. If I'm the Detroit Pistons, I think Stan Van Gundy's tired. I think that man should just retire. I think he should just enjoy his life. He accomplished a lot as a basketball coach. It's past his time. I think he's exhausted. I think this organization's exhausted. Y'all got to split. This coach GM thing was way too much for him to handle, and I think it's just time to wrap it up. That's got to be the first thing y'all do. Like the second the season ends, just be like, yo, I'm sorry, bro. You got to bounce.
I agree with that. He has to make the moves you want to see him make.
And it's not like you can blame like the other GM or something like that. It's him. Like he's taken on this responsibility. So when things don't work out, you have to take the repercussions of the actions made. So yeah, I mean, after that, Blake Griffin's here to stay. That's just a fact. So now what you got to do is figure out, how are you building around Blake Griffin? That's a tough question to answer, but I think a good step in that is figuring out how you can free up contract space to find a player that would be worth playing with Blake Griffin, which means, in my opinion, the best thing you can do is trade Andre Drummond. Pretty crazy, but I think the value that you would get for Andre Drummond would be the best you can get on this team. He's the most valuable player on the team. I don't think he's the best player on the team, but he's the most valuable player on the team. Like what we were saying from before, he is a championship center. There's going to be a lot of teams in the league that would want to have Andre Drummond on their team. So because of that, you could probably get a playoff team to give you some assets back. Very similar to actually what I feel the Clippers did to the Pistons. The Pistons could do to somebody else with Andre Drummond's contract. I feel like you could get a ton of assets back for Andre Drummond. And then from there, just focus on trying to get a coach that can focus on offensive development. Because I know the defense isn't there right now, but these players have just been so deprived of offense. It's just, they deserve that. Offense sells tickets. Y'all moved into a new stadium, so that's going to help with that too. It's going to make the Pistons more exciting again. Like, I don't think we've ever seen a Pistons team that was working to try to be like known as an offensive team. So that could be a cool, interesting switch up. It'll usher in a new era of what the Pistons are.
Yeah, I definitely got to agree with what you said. The only way to go with this team is you need to build around Blake Griffin, since he's going to be here for a while. And I don't think any team is going to be willing to take on the contract like the Pistons did. And I would even say packaging Reggie Jackson in there with Andre Drummond. And hopefully my goal would try to be get an all-star caliber guard, point guard specifically.
If you could just get a starting point guard that deserves... It's crazy to say this, but I feel like Lou Williams would have been really nice to have along with Blake Griffin. And I don't know what the Pistons are thinking, but they didn't trade for Lou. Like, they definitely should have done that. I think a player like Lou Williams or a healthy Isaiah Thomas would be great to have on this team. If you could somehow move the cap space, I just feel like a scoring guard on this team would be really, really useful. Also, I don't know what's going on with the Wizards situation, but like, if one of the, like Bradley Beal or John Wall is trying to shake, or Terry Rozier, if you can get Terry Rozier, yo, definitely try to get Terry Rozier. That's the move they should definitely try to make. See if you can get one of these guards off of the Celtics, because they got a whole lot of good players and there's not enough money to go around.
Oh, for Andre Drummond, I'm getting more than just Terry.
Oh, I'm not even saying for a trade, because he's going to be free. I would just say
be free.
Yeah, so
I like that move.
Because I'm thinking, get Andre Drummond just back for the most fucking value that you can. Doesn't even matter about the players or just get the best players that you can. And I mean players. Like, I'm not talking about like 1 5-star talent that may or may not work out with Blake Griffin. That's too risky. You don't want to deal with having all of that like contract cap get eaten up. I'm talking like what the Clippers did, where they got like 3 or 4 really good assets and then like high up draft picks at the same time. Like, if you can get 3 starters and 2 first-round draft picks for Andre Drummond, like, do that. And then, because you got that cap space freed up, then you could go sign Terry Rozier straight up.
I like that.
But, yeah, does that pretty much wrap it up for us here?
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I'd just like to see you try to develop your young talent, which really is only Luke Kennard, Stanley Johnson, and maybe Henry Ellison, if you're able to create a system that he can play in. But yeah. So, yeah, I think that's all you can do.
Yeah, so thanks for tuning in to listening to the Detroit Pistons. Hopefully we didn't bash them too hard if they're your favorite team. They just got to make the right moves, you know? I feel like no organization is constantly fucked. It just takes somebody smart to come in there and figure this out. All the luck to you, Detroit. Keep doing gentrification things. Let's get it.
Peace. Hit the subscribe button.
Yeah, please.